Hi, so today we're going to have a shootout between four really great reverbs. I'm a real stickler for reverb, and I'm looking for reverbs that sound as real as possible, because these days most people are recording in small rooms because people can't afford big studios with big rooms that have their own natural reverb. They're recording in small rooms that don't have a nice natural reverb, and so it's really important to have a great sounding reverb in the mix that sounds like a real space. And to my ears, 99% of the reverbs out there just don't cut it. They don't create a real sounding space. They might sound nice, but they don't sound that real. Can be useful for other purposes, definitely, but in terms of the main reverb, I'm looking for something that sounds really realistic and that's tweakable. So we're looking at four of what, in my view, are the best out there. We're going to start with the Sonsig REV, which is new. It's just come out by Relab, and it's very impressive. It can do some very real sounding spaces and a lot of other things too, and it's very tweakable. Sounds fantastic. And that's going to be up against the Lexicon PCM. And this, in case you didn't know, it is the hardware, the PCM 96 hardware, which is Lexicon's flagship reverb, current flagship reverb. This is exactly the same algorithms, 0 and 1 identical algorithms. The only difference is that the hardware has an A to D converter the signal needs to go in and out of, and that doesn't add to the quality of the reverb, obviously. So this is the same as the PCM 96. And then we have the Waves H-Reverb, which is a very flexible, deeply programmable, great sounding reverb. And then finally we have the Liquid Sonics 7th Heaven. And in case you don't know about this one, it is a capture of the Ricasti M7 hardware. And the Ricasti is considered by many to be the most realistic sounding reverb in existence. And it is absolutely an amazing sounding reverb. And this is a capture of it. It's not the usual impulse response capture. These are a proprietary method where they've captured many impulse responses over time, and then they're morphed between. So you get something which is an incredibly accurate capture of the hardware. And I know the hardware well, and this sounds, I mean, I honestly don't think I could tell the difference. Of course, the hardware allows a lot more tweakability than with this. This gives you quite a bit, but not like the hardware. So, but it sounds fantastic. So we've got four amazing sounding reverbs. We're going to be pitting them against each other with drums. I hope you find this useful, and let's have a listen. And I'm going to start with the Sonsig REV A. Again, these are all, apart from the 7th Heaven, these are all halls I've made myself to try to get them roughly the same. I really didn't get them that similar because these reverbs sound too different from each other. And the Sonsig, I have to say, is incredibly flexible. I'm very impressed by this reverb, and it's got a lot more in it than it looks like this size control. Each one of these clicks is a different algorithm, so it's not just making the size bigger, it's changing the sound of it, and these character settings change it a lot, and these are completely change the sound. So with all those combinations, let alone the rest of the controls, you've got a lot of different reverb sounds in this. So I have not, it's just come out, I haven't had the time to get to know it very well, and so I've come up with a hall sound, but you could come up with many others, just to let you know that this isn't necessarily representative of all the hall sounds in it by any stretch of the imagination. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a bit of this, and I'm just going to go through all of them, and then have a little talk about what my impressions were. So, starting with the Sonsig REV. Okay, so what were my thoughts about that? Well, they really sound all qualitatively quite significantly different. I thought they all sounded really great in different ways. The Sonsig, it's not just one Hall algorithm. Each of these size gives you a different algorithm. It's not just changing the size. And this character setting changes the reverb sound quite significantly, and these are change it even more profoundly. So with all those combinations, you've actually got a lot of different reverb algorithms in here, let alone all the tonal changes. Now I set this up so that it's got a lot of high end more than the others, and you can take that down. I'm just going to do that quickly just so because it was to my ear sounding a bit more toppy than the rest. So I'm just going to bring that down a little bit so you can hear that. So there you can hear it sounds a bit more like the others. But one of the reasons that I chose to have it toppy like this, I'm just going to play this again. Is because that's something that none of these other reverbs do quite in the same way. And it's something that I would personally find really useful, because I find if it's a track that wants Hall reverb on the snare, and of course many tracks don't want Hall reverb, but if that's the sound that you're after, what I find is that you can use that Hall to create a sense of space, not just for the kit but for the whole track. And if you've got a reverb that might sound really great in a more sparse mix, and it's got plenty of low end and there's a lot of richness to it, if you've got a dense mix, that tends to get eaten up, swallowed up by the density of the mix, and you don't really hear all that, and what you do get is just a muddiness. And you don't get that sense of space, and by the time you've brought the reverb level up so that you can start hearing that space, you're hearing too much of the reverb, and it sounds too wet and it sounds too muddy. And what's great about a reverb like this that can do this trick of sustaining the high end like it does means that you can get that sense of space without having to add so much of the reverb in a dense mix. You start hearing that space without hearing the reverb too much, which could be really useful. So I actually think this is stands out amongst the rest for that particular purpose. But in terms of overall, I thought they all sounded great for different things. Obviously the Liquid Sonic sounds incredibly realistic. It sustains a subtlety of the tone of the drum, and it sounds like a very real space. The Lexicon has that smooth, rich sound that Lexicons have, really nice, quite a bit of low end. And the H-Reverb also sounded really good. It had a nice tone to the low end while having quite a bit of highs as well. So yeah, all really good in really different ways. So now let's move on to plates. So here we are with the plates. Now this time I've got the same four, except for the Lexicon, it's the plate algorithm, and similarly with the Seventh Heaven, the plate algorithm. But I've also got the Sound Toys little plate because it's an emulation of a real plate, and just to give us a bit of context in comparison to a real plate. Not that that matters to me. The way I use plates anyway is to first provide a certain function in a mix, which is to do with the density of the reverb. Plates are very dense reverbs and can be really useful in reinforcing the tonal sound, the tonal qualities of certain instruments, and in a way that no other reverb does. So it's not, I wouldn't use it to create space as so much as, because it doesn't really create a realistic space, but I use it to reinforce tone. Very useful for that. So it doesn't really matter to me whether they sound real or not, it's do they have those qualities that I'm after. But I just thought it would be interesting and useful to hear them next to a real plate so you can have some sense of context there. So we'll play, starting with a little plate. and then I'm going to move through them so you can hear them in comparison. So here we go. So, what did I think about that? Well, they're all different again. I thought that the Lexicon and the Liquid Sonic sounded the most like the real plate, but they both sounded also quite different from it. In terms of the Rev, I made that plate sound, and I don't know this reverb that well. I could probably get a plate sound that was a bit better than that, but it gives you an idea of what it sounds like at its maximum density. And yeah, it sounds like a plate. I think that sounds like a plate sound as much as the other ones do. And similarly with this one, it's similar to the Rev in the sense that it doesn't have a specific plate algorithm. It has a very variable algorithm that you can make extremely dense or very undense and change other attributes of the algorithm so that you can create many different types of reverbs from it. So I think with these two, you're unlikely to get a reverb that sounds as much like a real plate as you're going to get out of these two, which have dedicated plate algorithms in them. But I got them both kind of in that platey kind of area. And again, as I said before, for me, it doesn't matter how much it sounds like a real plate. Does it have that density? Is it pulling out the right tones in the instrument that I'm applying it to? And what I liked about both of these two is you can really fine-tune very accurately what areas of the tone it's pulling out. So that's nice. But, you know, both of these sound really great too. I mean, they all sound really good. And I find this one can be really nice on a snare. I often use this on a snare. So that's it. I hope you found this useful and interesting. And if you did, please do subscribe and click the like and ring the bell and all that stuff. And I hope to see you next time.